Hello, welcome to the first lesson of natural language processing. So if you look at the V's that we discuss, one of the V's is the variety. When you are looking at a language text, first variety is different language. Especially when you are dealing with crowdsourced data, public data, such as Facebook or something else, forums, you will see in a one post, there are different languages. On the other hand, there can be replies to a one form in different languages. So first thing, so how do we deal with these multiple languages? So you will see multilingual internet, social media, and we need sentiment analysis to be done. And in chatbots, people are chatting in different languages. And if you want to do translation, right, you need to understand what the language is. So those are the typical application of this language identification. So if you look at this, you will see, if you ask yourself, what are these languages? The first one, you can easily say it's English. And fourth one is Tamil. Next one is predominantly Sinhala, but there are some English terms as well. So, and second one probably German. So likewise, you can see different languages are there. Humans, we can identify this. Now, next challenge is how computer can identify these languages. So these are the expected language. If you are a human, this is how you identify those languages. Sorry, I said the second one is German. It's not German, it's a French. So that's a mistake I did. Last one is German, not the second one. So why it's a challenging task? So I'll explain this through a simple books, couple of books. So this content is about Confessions of an Economic Hitman, the book written by John Perkinson. So this is translated to Sinhala. And if you look at these two books, you can see from this this picture, even though it's the same content, Sinhala book is little thicker than the English book. When we further analyze this, you will see English book, sorry, Sinhala book has 413 pages and its page size is also a little higher, whereas the English book has only 350 pages. If you look at the area of this particular book, Sinhala book is around 14 square meters, while the English book is 6 square meters. Now that explains the same content in two different languages will lead to different analysis because these are language properties. One more example, again something close to us, about this particular book. It's about the incident which happened in 1981. So I have in this book there are three. The preface is written in Sinhala, English, and Tamil. So if you look at these three texts, Sinhala one is 7 pages, English one is 7.5 pages, whereas the Tamil one is 9 pages. So this means due to its language properties, its own language properties, the same content is represented in different ways. So due to this, our analysis, our pre-processing task can be different. So if you have a pre-processing task, first thing we need to do is we have to identify what the language is. Depending on the language, our pre-processing task can be different. So the language detection is automatic identification of language in a given text. You are inputting a text, can be a large number of text, and output is what is this language. Optionally, some tools give you the probability of the that particular language as well. We will look at some samples in a little later. Right, so this is the natural language processing pipeline. So we have to do a lot of pre-processing tasks. So you can see we'll be discussing them a little later. Text normalization, tokenization, feature extraction, and then the NLP tasks such as classification, translation, or whatever. Now, when you're starting with text normalization, tokenizing, and feature extraction, it language dependent. Most of the techniques are language dependent. So the technique that you're applying for English will not work for Sinhala, will not work for Tamil. So therefore, first and foremost, you need to identify what the language is. Depending on this language, your techniques that you apply is different. That is why the language detection is an important process in the natural language processing. Also, it is mostly the first the task that you do, especially if you are dealing with public data sources. If you are dealing with curated data sets, data sources, that is, if you know that, for example, some books, English books, so you know that it's in English. But if you are dealing with none or rather public sources, you are not sure. So therefore, you have to detect the language first. Right. So what are the approaches that you have? There are common approaches, rule-based approaches are there. Depending on some Unicodes and some script, you will say, okay, if this word is there, it is an English or something like that. The most common technique is the Ngram technique or the statistical technique, and there are machine learning and deep learning techniques as well. So this is the Ngram technique. If you look at this, let's say this is your input text, you will divide that text into 2 grams. That is LA, AN, NG, GU likewise. Then you look at, so these word pairs, you look at the probability of this in a given language. What is the probability of LA in English? What is the probability of LA in Germany? What is the probability of this particular 2 letters in some other language? So likewise, you calculate all the probabilities and then you decide what is the most likely language for this particular text. So there are different algorithms are there. Language tech, which is what I'll be using for this particular discussion. So you can look at other techniques as well. So what are the challenges that we'll have with this technique? Number one challenge is if you are dealing with short text, hi, hello. So you are not sure. Code mixed language. Now, you know, sometimes we say BTW, by the way, and you have a lot of similar vocabularies. And then there are some similar languages. Some languages are similar. For example, okay, Swedish and no, they are similar. They are similar in language. And there are noisy data. You will have emojis, right? You will have commas, pictures, right? So that's another challenge that we will have when it comes to language detection. So what are the use cases? For search engines. Now you can't, if you can't say that, okay, searching can be done only in English. So if you can type any languages you want. Chatbots, if you are dealing with chatbots where you are allowing clients to contact your services, right? The people will type in different languages. So first thing before answering is you need to understand what that language is. Depending on that, you need to treat accordingly. Translations. Social media analysis. If you are doing social media analysis, then we need to detect the language first and then act accordingly. So I will have a case which we'll be discussing during the class. So if you look at the summary, so we will have multiple languages will be feeding. And then using the statistical engram technique, it will identify what is the most common language. And then there are implementation and practical challenges that uh, there are the standard tools. Language check is the most common tool, or other tool that I will be using. And then the complex detection, there are obstacles like short language, code mixed language, and similar languages are there. And then essential, so the search engines, automated chatbots, and social media are the sentiment analysis are the use cases for this particular language detection. So so what we have to do is, whatever the task you are doing, if you are using public data, first thing you need to do is detect the language. So we will have a task. So you are in a project. Create list of 20 plus multilingual the sentences relevant to your project. Apply language detection. Right. So remember, these are tools. It might not be accurate. Then you have to how many correctly detections ones are there, how many incorrect detection ones are there, and then write a short reflection on this language detection. Okay, so let's do some exercise, or let's do some practice. I have shared this URL as well, where you can do some practice on your own. Right. So I'll be using two libraries, language detect and language ID. So I ran this one before. So now you can see I'm using language detect library, and then I want to detect what this language of this particular text. So if I run this, it will say English. Simple. Right. So this is another example where I have array of text in different languages. This is some sort of a thing that you need to do during your work, right? So this is your text, and then what I want to do is I want to detect language of each text. Now you can clearly see I have specifically removed Sinhala, because Sinhala will give an error to this, right? So if I run this, it will identify, okay, this belongs to English, this belongs to Arabic, this belongs to Hungarian, English again, Russian, English, Italian, Japanese, I guess Tamil, French, Danish, English, Danish. Not sure what this is. Right, so likewise, this is German, uh, Ukraine, English. Likewise, you will get language in different. It will identify the different languages. Right. So I'll be using another library for the same text. Now this one gives you the language as well as the probability. Now you might see why this is in minus, right? So that is a logarithmic value. So this is the typical, how do you read these values? So if it is basically between -1 to 100, that is more confident that it is the language that it belongs. Now, for example, this one, you can see it's -1398. It identified it as a Ukraine, but not too sure, right? So there is a some sort of a doubt there, right? So from the language detect, you can look at you can identify different languages as well. Now some text belongs to multiple languages. So that is something you can try out again during your exercise as well. You can type one text belongs to multiple languages and try this out. So this says it's 85% it's English, 14% CY stand for Scottish, Scottish. Now this one is now let's say I have large text. I want to select only the English text. Now let's say if you are working with uh, let's say 2 million records of text data. So you want to filter out only the English text only. Others might be less than 1%. So you don't have to worry about those things. So out of this entire text, you will extract only the English text. So this is the Python function that I have written. So, and if you run this, you can say I'm passing the array and I'm passing the language that I need. So this will filter out only the English text. This will filter out only the English text. All the other languages will not be selected. Now I will give you a example of language detection. The research paper is there for discussion. Now we were dealing with Facebook data. That is to identify sentiment of public sentiment of health and price of the different products. So we scrape through the Facebook data and then we realize it's around 50% of data is English. There is 40% of Sinhala data and there is another around 10% of Singlish data. My numbers might not be exact correct, but it's similar to those numbers. Now we could have easily select 50% of data and we could have gone with our analysis. But that is not correct because 40%, that sentiment is very important. So what we did was by using a language detection, we took the English, we extract the English text, then Sinhala text, we identify the Sinhala text and then we translate them into English and from that we did the analysis. Less 10% of data which is in Singlish, we decided to ignore. We thought, okay, number one, there is no tools those days. This research was done around 6 years ago. Those days, there are no tools to convert Singlish into English or Sinhala. So therefore, we decided to ignore that 10% of data. Now, that decision should be, you can't take that decision at the start without looking at the data. You need to look at the data, different percentages, and then we can decide what to do. Another example, this was a project. One company, they want to do an analysis, sentiment analysis on on their employees. They have a tool called Yammer, where people are publishing their sentiments. This is normally an English-based. The communication happens in English in this particular company, but people are posting their thoughts and ideas in different languages as well. So first thing when we analyzed the data, we saw that less than 2% of data is in non-English text. By using an English detection, we identified and we ignored them. So what I want to tell you is, your first task is in a natural language processing is language detection. However, and then depending on that number, you can decide what you should do. Whether you are ignoring it, whether you are translating it, or any other means can be decided by only after doing the language detection. So it's a very important task when you are doing any text analysis, and then only we can go for the further analysis. Hope you get an understanding of language detection, and let's see how you can do your projects and how you can start your projects with the language detection. Thank you very much.